Have you ever felt a crack run through your life you swear the walls hurt it? Not the kind from movies, clean, scripted, but the kind that starts at home, in the bed you paid off with overtime. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was 35, proud of the house I built nail by nail. The marriage I believed was solid, the future I thought I could trust. Lately though, the air felt different. My wife's phone slept face down. The neighbor Ethan waved too often, offered help I hadn't asked for, smiled like we shared a joke I didn't get. I worked late that week, came home to candles I didn't light and a citrus scent I didn't recognize. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was jealous. Maybe I was right. That Saturday, a delivery came to my job package my name. Inside, a slim folder. A receipt for a room, 2 signatures, 1 familiar. My heart stuttered, then steadied. I left early without telling anyone, the folder tucked under my arm like contraband. On the walk to the door, the house looked too perfect, somehow. Somewhere inside, a laugh broke the quiet. It wasn't mine. The laugh snapped off the second my key turned. By the time I crossed the threshold, the house had swallowed it. Just the refrigerator hum and the faint tick of the hallway clock. The citrus candle was a shallow pool of wax again, flame flickering like it was trying to say something. Mia? I called. My voice sounded too loud, like I was the guest. She stepped into view in one of my old college t-shirts. Bare legs, hair tied high like she was mid-cleaning. Hey babe. You're early. A quick smile, practiced casual. Her phone lay face down on the console table, a charging cable coiled beside it like a rope. I held the parcel under my arm, the folder inside thin as a blade. Yeah, light day. She angled her head. You okay? Fine. I kissed her cheek. Her skin was cool, not like someone who'd just been laughing hard. The TV was on in the bedroom down the hall, low volume, some sitcom rerun, punctuated by canned chuckles I hadn't noticed before. Maybe that was the laugh. Maybe Dot in the kitchen. A glass sweated on the counter. 2 rings of condensation marked where another glass had been moved quickly. Mia clocked my eyes and shifted a cutting board over 1 ring like a reflex, then flashed an unnecessary grin. Lemon water, she said. Hydration. I wanted to hold up the folder right then, slap it on the counter like a warrant. Instead, I poured tap water, turning the handle too far so it screeched. You don't detonate a grenade just because you found the pin on the floor, I told myself. You confirm the casing. You count the shrapnel. We ate early leftover pasta she swore she'd made at lunch. We didn't talk about my day or hers. We filled the space with taxes and a clogged gutter and whether the neighborhood barbecue was still on for Sunday. Ethan said he'll bring his smoker, Mia said, eyes on her plate. Of course he will, I said, and stabbed a noodle like it owed me money. She laughed lightly. You two should hang out more. He really looks up to you. Yeah? I took a slow breath. Ethan was my age, maybe a year younger. He moved in 6 months after us, new fence, fresh paint, the works. He had that easy, neighborly charm, borrowing tools, returning them cleaner, helping bring in groceries like he'd been waiting for the chance. He talked about yard lines and football and the difficulty of finding a good mechanic, and he never seemed to go to work. He consulted, which can mean anything and often does. That night, Mia fell asleep fast, one arm flung across my stomach. I stared at the ceiling and listened to her breathe. When my phone buzzed on the nightstand at 1:12 a.m., I flinched and grabbed it. A delivery notification from earlier I'd missed. In the blue light, the folder on the dresser looked like a shadow with edges. I got up, opened it again, and reread the receipt that had been mailed to my office. A nearby motel. 2 nights ago, a room with a king bed. 2 names at check-in, hers, and a scrawl that could be anything, but once you see a shape, your brain rarely lets it be otherwise. The second signature leaned tall and forward, letters jogging downhill the way Ethan's did on the thanks man. Sticky notes he left when he borrowed something. I slid the receipt back into its sleeve. My own signature has always been neat, squared. I learned to write contracts before I learned to write love letters. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe at WASN single quotes T-da in the morning, the house was quiet. Mia was already up, coffee brewed, the good mugs laid out like a hotel. I booked us a couple's massage next weekend, she said, as if reading from a lifestyle blog. You've been tense. Thoughtful, I said, and wondered who taught her to say that dot across the fence that afternoon. Ethan popped up like a jack-in-the-box. Yo, Chief. You still got my torque wrench? He leaned on the fence in a way that made it look like it leaned on him. I wiped my hands on a rag. Returned it yesterday. Left it on your porch. Oh, must have missed it. He flashed a grin at Mia watering the hydrangeas, then lowered his voice half an inch and asked me how the smoker hookup worked with my outlet. Innocent, practical. A conversation about amperage that could have happened any day. I answered evenly. His eyes drifted past me like we were normal neighbors talking normal neighbor things. That evening, Mia said she'd be late. Sarah from work had a crisis, a deliverable, a something. I nodded, said I'd heat leftovers. I watched her get ready. She changed earrings twice and then pretended not to care which shoes. She sprayed the citrus at her wrists and the base of her neck. I knew the brand by then. I'd found the bottle behind the bathroom towels, tucked like a secret. The label promised sunlit orchard. On her skin, it smelled like someone else's house. She kissed my forehead and left. The house absorbed the click of the door and then exhaled. 20 minutes later, a text exploded on my phone from an unknown number with no message, just a photo of a parking lot I recognized. The motel. The timestamp was live. A black truck I knew by its dented quarter panel nosed into a slot near the back. I felt that, now familiar thud in my chest and another behind my eyes. I could have driven there. I didn't. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table and set the receipt and the photo side by side like mismatched bookends. If you're watching this and shouting at the screen, go now, go now. Trust me, I heard you. But anger is a bad detective and an even worse judge. I wanted certainty, not a scene. I wanted the truth to fit together so tightly it would hold even when my hands were shaking. The next day, I called in sick. Mia left in a hurry, a quick love you, tossed over her shoulder that landed somewhere near the sink. I waited 5 minutes and then went into our bedroom with a calm I didn't recognize. Her closet was as organized as her social media color blocks and little boxes for little things. I wasn't looking to violate. I was looking to survive. In the jewelry drawer, tucked under the cotton batting, I found a cheap keycard sleeve from the same motel, scuffed at the corners. Inside, no card. Just air and the shape where a card had been. When I slid the sleeve back, my hand brushed something harder. A folded note, not to me. Tuesday 6, it read. Your place or mine? The E had the downhill jog. I sat on the edge of the bed until the silence got loud. Then I stood, put everything back exactly as I found it, and forced myself to go to work because routine is the raft you cling to when the shoreline shifts. For a while, months really, I played normal like a pianist playing scales. We hosted neighbors for burgers. Ethan complimented my grill marks like I'd won a medal. Mia laughed at something he said and touched his arm as if it were an accident she'd planned. When she caught me looking, she smiled with all her teeth and handed me a plate. The night ended with trash bags and dishes and the smell of smoke in my hair. In bed, she thanked me for being patient, for trusting us. I kissed her shoulder and tasted salt and the citrus that would not wash off. If you've ever felt your reality tilt a degree and then another, you know how the smallest things start to glow with meaning. The neighbor's dog barked twice at 3 a.m. on a Wednesday, and I wrote it down like a clue. An extra wine glass appeared in the dishwasher, lip print I couldn't place. I held it up to the light like a detective in a procedural. The gate between our yards was unlatched on days I knew I had secured it. A receipt for a garden hose turned up on our bank statement when we hadn't bought a hose. I questioned myself constantly. Maybe I was inventing patterns in wallpaper. Maybe suspicion was the affair I was having with my own fear. But then the little truths kept stacking, light as paper until the stack was heavy enough to bruise. A week later, late afternoon, I was fixing a hinge in the garage when I heard voices on the other side of the shared fence. Mia's laugh, soft, breathy, floated over. Ethan's lower, a murmur. I set the drill down and walked out like a man wandering into weather. The yard was empty. The gate clicked somewhere I couldn't see. Our bedroom window upstairs was open an inch. The curtain breathed in and out as if the house were alive. I backed away and went inside through the front, made noise in the hallway, said, "Honey, I'm home," like an actor. From upstairs, the bathroom fan spun to life. Water ran. The citrus rode the air like a signature. She came down wrapped in steam and a towel. "You scared me," she said too brightly. I was just showering. Because? I asked. "Pilates." I got sweaty. We haven't paid for Pilates in 9 months. I could feel the receipt in my pocket, like a coin I couldn't spend. That night, I told myself to choose a side. Either I believed her, and we were two people who would fight for us, or I didn't, and I was a fool. I fell asleep somewhere between those poles and dreamed of a house with no doors, only windows I couldn't open. The following Sunday, the neighborhood barbecue roared to life as if curated for a brochure. Kids chalked hopscotch grids on the sidewalk. Dads argued about smoking times. Someone put on classic rock too loud. I kept catching Ethan's gaze and then losing it. At one point, he lifted his beer in a lazy salute and wandered over. "Heard you got that promotion," he said. "Deserved, man." I hadn't told him about it. I hadn't told anyone yet, not even Mia. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Word travels," he shrugged, smile never slipping. "Good news echoes." Mia floated by then, hands full of napkins, eyes bright. "Hey babe," she said to me, and then to Ethan, "Did you try the ribs? They're insane." She touched his elbow like wives touch neighbors. Everyone laughed at a joke about the team that never wins. The world kept turning its ordinary face to the sun. Near sunset, I ducked inside to use the bathroom and passed my own bedroom door ajar. A corner of our comforter was flipped back like someone had sat there and stood quickly. The smell of soap and citrus braided the air. On the knitstand, my wedding ring left a faint circle where I'd set it that morning before working the grill. Metal heats fast over open flame. Next to the ring, a text lit my phone with a vibration I felt in my bones. Same time after evening prayer? A heart he won't suspect. The name at the top was Mia's. The contact it was sent to was hidden by a nickname. The truck emoji. I stared and realized my own phone had mirrored her. Notification from a shared calendar app we had connected once to sync reminders. It glitched sometimes, and today it betrayed her as cleanly as any witness. I waited. Outside, a cheer went up for a backyard 3-legged race. I could have walked downstairs, lifted the phone high, and read the text aloud. I could have thrown the ring through a window. Instead, I put the ring on, felt its cool circle settle, and took a picture of the screen. 1, 2, 3. Because proof matters when your memory will later be accused of hysteria. Then I set the phone down exactly where it had been and went back to the yard. There's a special kind of skill in surviving a party while quietly breaking apart. You laugh, you refill the ice, you nod at the right times while your inside's inventory exits. That night, Mia said she was tired and went up early. 10 minutes later, I heard the creak of the floor over the garage, the one spot that always complains. I pictured her tapping a message to E, with 2 hands, quick, practiced. I pictured him seeing the heart and smiling at his screen in the dark, his truck key on the knitstand by a lamp that matched ours. because this street had been built by one builder. One catalog. When you watch these stories online, the comments split into teams. Team walk away now, team catch them red-handed. If you're here right now, choosing sides, I get it. Tell me, which one are you? Would you confront? Would you gather evidence? Would you burn the house down metaphorically, or worse? Think hard, because the choice you make in the moment will live with you long after everyone else stops talking about it. I decided on Tuesday. I told my boss I'd be working remote that day. I told Mia I had an off-site. I backed my car out at 7:10 a.m., looped around the block, and parked 2 streets over beneath a tree shedding small, papery leaves. I walked back home by the alley like a thief. The morning was bright and ordinary. Sprinklers ticked. A jogger nodded. I let myself through the side gate with the key. Mia didn't know I knew. She kept in the terracotta pot with a crack. I waited in the garage with the door halfway down. A slice of daylight at my feet. At 7:42, Ethan's black truck rolled slow past our house, then idled. He didn't park. He texted, probably, and a moment later our back door opened and shut. Mia stepped out, looked once toward the street, and then slipped back in. 2 minutes, maybe 3. The truck eased away. A dance of caution. A rehearsal. At 5:58 that evening, the church around the corner rang its bells. Evening prayer, Mia had typed. At 6:03, my phone buzzed with the calendar ping that had betrayed her before. Gentle reminder, quiet time. I almost laughed at the name she'd given it. At 6:10, the black truck pulled into the alley and stopped behind the fence line, where a gap in the boards made a keyhole to our yard. I watched through it, breath shallow. The side gate latch clicked. Footsteps crossed the flagstones I had laid this summer. We poured the patio. The back door opened and closed. The citrus hit first. I counted to 60 twice. Then I lifted the garage door quietly and stepped into the side yard. The bedroom window, the one that breathes, was open an inch. The curtain moved. Someone laughed low. The sound that started this whole thing found its way back to me like a homing bird. My hand shook as it hovered over the knob of the back door. Not from fear, if I'm honest, not from rage, but from the feeling that your life is a glass you're about to drop on purpose. I pressed my ear to the wood and heard bodies shifting, and the murmur of voices that knew each other too well for neighbors. I didn't go in. Not yet. I pulled my hand back, dug my phone out, and hit record on video. I filmed the open window, the timestamp, the truck's bumper with the quarter panel dent, the back door scuffed where a shoe had caught last month. I filmed the calendar alert, then the text preview that slid across the top of my lock screen at 6:17 like a subtitle. Doors unlocked. Hurry. The heart again. I pocketed the phone and stepped away from the house I built nail by nail. The sky was the kind of blue you get maybe 6 nights a year. The church bells kept time. And in that moment, I knew, if I barged in, I would end something with a bang and maybe spend years haunted by echoes. If I waited, I could end it with a ledger and leave with what little of myself hadn't been spent already. So I waited one more night. The longest of my life. I lay next to her, both of us awake, both pretending not to be, and I counted her breaths and the seconds between them. When she rolled toward me, I faced the wall. When she sighed, I swallowed air. By morning, I had a plan that was less a plan and more a path. Collect, confirm, confront, but on my terms, in my time, in a room where truth couldn't run. And then Tuesday came, and with it the day everything finally broke. Tuesday began with the kind of sky that lies fresh, polished blue, the air cool enough to make you believe in clean starts. I told Mia I had an early off-site, kissed her cheek, and listened to the deadbolt thud behind me. I didn't leave. I stood on the porch until her taillights disappeared, then let myself back in through the side gate and pulled the garage door halfway down, enough to hide me, not enough to raise suspicion. Inside, the house felt staged again. Pillows squared, counters wiped, the citrus candle waiting like a prop. I set my phone to silent, camera ready, and waited for truth to show up on time. At 10:02 a.m., the first bell rang from the little church down the block. At 10:06, my phone lit with a calendar echo I hated but now relied on. Quiet time, 10:15. A second later, a text banner skated across the top of my lock screen from Mia to a contact labeled E. Same time? Heart. The ding didn't sound, but I felt it in my ribs. Through the garage gap, I caught a slice of alley, the kind of ordinary back lane where recycling bins live and secrets park. The dented quarter panel of Ethan's truck drifted into view like a familiar mistake. He idled, lights off. 2 quick flashes from his phone, then the engine clicked off. He didn't use the back gate. He used the side, the one that sticks unless you lift and push at the same time. Knowledge you only get by living in a place you shouldn't. I filmed the latch, the scuff on the doorframe where shoes had scraped before, the way the knob turned without resistance. The citrus hit the air before they made a sound. Then a soft laugh carried down the hallway, the exact note that had been haunting my skull for weeks. I moved like a man handling thin glass. The carpet in the back hall muffled my steps, but I could feel my heartbeat in my solace. Our bedroom door was cracked, the curtain breathing with the open window's inch of air. I pushed the door with 2 fingers until the hinge whispered. Ruffled sheets. Her blouse thrown over the chair. His belt coiled on the floor like a snake that had shed its purpose. I didn't need to see more. The human brain is merciful and cruel. It fills in what you don't want to witness in 4K detail anyway. My hand steadied the phone. My other hand curled so tight my nails bit my palm. I don't know how long I watched. 5 seconds, 10, a lifetime. I know this. Hearing your name in a stranger's mouth is one kind of theft. Hearing it in your spouse's whisper while she lies in your bed with your neighbor is another. They weren't saying my name, not then. They were saying, he'll never know, and then his answer quiet, confident, downhill letters made sound, he's too blind. I didn't crash in. I didn't explode. I slid my phone into my pocket, knocked once on my own door, and pushed it open to daylight. Smile, I said, not because I needed a witty line, but because it kept my throat from closing. They scrambled the choreography of cowards. Mia yanked the sheet like it might erase the past 10 minutes. Ethan grabbed for his jeans and found nothing but buttons and air. His mouth worked around words that refused to be born. Her eyes found mine, and for a moment the house, the world, the bells, the truck, all of it went silent. There are looks that end chapters. This one ended a book. No, she said, but it wasn't an answer. It was a plea thrown at physics. It's not listen, it's not what. It's exactly what it looks like, Ethan said, then winced at his own honesty. I had always suspected he loved shortcuts. I didn't shout. I let the quiet do the work. Get dressed, I said. Both of you, now. My voice sounded borrowed from a version of me who read the fine print before signing his life away. Mia's hands shook as she reached for the blouse. Ethan fumbled with his belt like it had grown new rules. I turned, walked to the window, and pushed it closed with the soft finality of a lid. The room warmed by a degree. The smell of citrus had nowhere to go. In the kitchen, I set the folder on the table, the motel receipt, the printed screenshots, the photo of the truck from last week's lot. I laid them out in a straight line like a runway truth could land on without wobbling. When they came down, I didn't invite them to sit. They sat anyway, side by side, leaving an inch between them as if an inch mattered. Mia reached for my hand and stopped when she saw my face. I didn't pull away because I hadn't offered it. She started, then folded. I don't know how to explain. Try, I said. It was a mistake, she said, tears making her eyes brighter, voice tuned to the frequency that used to undo me. It just happened. We were talking. I was lonely. You were working late, And don't do that, I said. Not loud, never loud. Don't use my hours to excuse your minutes. Ethan cleared his throat. Man, listen. He called me man when he wanted to level, chief when he wanted to flatter, and my name when he wanted something real. He didn't use my name now. We didn't mean what? I asked. To walk through my door? To use my bed? To lie in my house and then wave at me over the fence? What did you mean? He swallowed. I watched his throat move and wished I were the kind of person who liked fighting. I am not. I collect evidence. I keep ledgers. I finish what I start. Mia's tears found gravity. It started once, she said, small. It was going to be only once. Once, I repeated, and slid the motel receipt forward with my finger. 2 nights ago. King bed, 2 signatures. And here, I tapped the printed text with the heart. Same time after evening prayer. He won't suspect. I let that line rest in the room, acidic. He did suspect. He just refused to believe you would treat him like he was furniture. She flinched. Please, she said, and reached again, then stopped again. I love you. No, I said, and watched the word land. You love who I made it easy for you to be. Silence is different after truth. The refrigerator hum sounded like a threat. The clock's tick sounded like a countdown. Ethan finally stood, belt buckled, shirt inside out. I should go, he said. Yeah, I said. Use the front. The neighbors should see you leave my house in daylight. He paused, eyes flicking toward Mia as if she might save him with an errand. When she didn't move, he nodded like we were closing a deal and walked to the door. His hand hovered over the knob. He looked back with a face I will always remember, not sorry calculating. The math didn't work anymore. He left, and the door clicked in a way that felt like change of address. I didn't speak for a long minute. Neither did she. I heard a kid's scooter skitter on the sidewalk outside, a dog bark twice, a mail slot somewhere slap. Normal life kept doing its dumb brave thing. I want you out, I said finally, a sentence that had lived in my mouth for weeks, learning the taste of itself. Pack a bag. Go to your sister's. We'll talk about everything else later. Not today. Not while I'm bleeding. She stood like someone learning gravity. Can I? She gestured vaguely toward the hallway. Just shower? You already did, I said, and the flinch that passed through her told me she knew which detail gave that away. She nodded once, eyes down, and went to the bedroom. I listened to drawers, the zipper of a duffel, the small sounds of a life breaking into travel-sized pieces. When she came back with the bag, she paused at the threshold. I am sorry, she said, a little louder, like volume might convince. I don't know who I am right now. You knew enough, I said after the door closed behind her. I let the house be loud. I didn't turn anything off. The TV in the spare room still murmured a rerun. The bathroom fan upstairs whirred, a faucet dripped in the hall bath. I walked through and shut each noise in turn until only the clock remained. Then I sat at the table and watched the second hand climb up, drop. Up, drop like someone teaching me how to breathe again. I called my boss and told him I was taking the week. I called a locksmith I knew from a leak last year. He came in an hour, changed the deadbolts, and installed a simple camera in the entry, another in the side yard. I called a friend who owed me nothing and told him just enough to make him offer what I needed. A couch if it came to that. Help if I asked, silence unless I broke it. Then I opened a new email folder and titled it with today's date, Tuesday, the day I stopped guessing. I dragged the motel receipt, the photos, the screenshots into it. I printed copies and put them in the folder on the table. When truth has weight, paper helps. By late afternoon, I'd stopped shaking. The house felt less like a crime scene and more like a blueprint. I walked room to room and took pictures not of them, of what was mine, the bed frame I assembled, the closet I built shelves into, The kitchen island I sanded and sealed. The fence line I measured and lined with string before setting posts. Proof that I made things and that I still could. I ate toast over the sink because plates felt ceremonial. I drank water from the bottle because glasses felt like lies. At dusk, the church bells chimed again. I stood at the window and watched porch lights blink on down the street, one by one, like stars learning how to be domestic. My phone buzzed with a string of messages I didn't open. I knew their shape anyway. I'm sorry. Please talk. It wasn't what you think. It was everything you think. Somewhere, Ethan was rewriting the story for himself, cutting scenes that didn't make him look good. Mia was probably doing the same, telling herself the chapter had a different narrator. The only version I cared about was the one I could point to without my voice shaking. When it got fully dark, I did something small that felt like armor. I changed the sheets. I bagged the old set without smelling them, put the bag in the trash bin by the curb, and washed my hands until the water ran cold. Then I made the bed like a soldier, tight corners, smooth cover. I slept on top of the blanket, on my side of the mattress, facing the wall. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the open window breathing. Every time I opened them, I saw the folder on the table. Morning would need a version of me who could act, not react. There would be a call to a lawyer. There would be a conversation with her family. There would be a plan, not the kind where you light a match, the kind where you build a room and invite truth in under bright lights with witnesses. The day everything broke had one job: end guesswork. It did. The next day would start the work of ending shame. I set an alarm for 7 a.m., placed my phone face up for the first time in weeks, and spoke out loud into the empty room, just to hear a voice I trusted. Collect, confirm, confront, on my terms. Outside, somewhere far, a truck engine turned over and faded. The house settled around me, framed to foundation, as if remembering who built it. The morning after felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, not sure if I'd jump or fly. The folder on the table was my parachute, and I knew if I leapt too soon, all I'd do was break bones. So I did what I've always done best. I made a plan. Revenge wasn't about fists or fire. It was about truth so undeniable that even liars couldn't talk their way out of it. First step: gather everything. I combed through our shared cloud accounts, pulled phone records, took screenshots until my storage begged for mercy. Every late night message, every quiet time entry, every suspicious charge on our card, I documented all of it. I drove past the motel in broad daylight, walked into the lobby like a man asking about a lost item, and left with a copy of the guest log in my pocket. 2 names, 2 nights. The paper was thin, but in my hands, it weighed more than stone. Second step: stage the reveal. I waited for the right occasion, the neighborhood barbecue the next weekend. Everyone would be there: friends, family, neighbors, the same people who waved to us like we were perfect. I smiled through the days leading up, acting normal, while inside I was building a stage for their downfall. The night came warm, cicadas buzzing. I grilled like always, shook hands, poured drinks. Ethan laughed too loud, his hand brushing Mia's as if the world was blind. I let them believe. Then, when the crowd was full and the music low, I tapped my glass. "I want to thank everyone for coming," I said. "And I want to share something with the people closest to me." I pulled out the folder. The photos. The texts. The motel receipts. My voice didn't shake. "This is my wife. And this is my neighbor. And this," I held up the proof, "is what they've been doing in the bed you've all seen through my windows." The silence was absolute, then shattered by gasps. Mia froze, pale as paper. Ethan muttered something about lies, but the receipts screamed louder. People turned away from them, eyes full of judgment, disappointment, disgust. For once, I wasn't the one humiliated. They were. Mia tried to speak, tears on her cheeks. Ethan stormed off, face red, muttering curses. And me? I stood taller. For the first time in weeks, maybe years, I felt like myself again, no longer blind, no longer fooled. As the crowd dispersed in whispers, I closed the folder and set it down. Sometimes, I said, the only way to heal is to cut the infection out. The night ended not with laughter or music, but with truth hanging heavy in the air. And I was fine with that. The night of the barbecue ended with the sound of chairs scraping back, hushed voices, and the slam of Ethan's truck door echoing down the street. I stayed behind, standing in the glow of the porch light, folders still in my hand. My neighbors looked at me differently, now not with pity, but with a kind of respect I hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time since this all began, I wasn't the fool in the story. I was the man who finally spoke the truth out loud. When the last guest left, silence filled the yard. The smoke from the grill drifted upward, fading into the dark sky, and I realized the metaphor wasn't lost on me. Something had burned, and what remained was only ashes. I walked back inside, and the house felt hollow. Every corner still held the ghost of what Mia and I had been, but the shadows no longer scared me. They only reminded me of why things had to change. Mia didn't come home that night. She texted me once, "I'm sorry. Please let's talk." I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already been said under that porch light, in front of the people who once believed we were unbreakable. Words were too cheap, and she had already spent them on someone else. The days after were a blur of paperwork and decisions. I met with a lawyer, laid out the folder, and watched his eyebrows lift as he flipped through each page. "You've got more than enough," he said. His voice was calm, professional, but I heard the truth under it. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I had proof, and proof is power. Packing her things was the hardest part. Not because I wanted to keep them, but because each shirt, each book, each framed photo carried a memory I had to let die. I filled boxes and stacked them by the door. When Mia came to collect them, she cried. She begged. She said the words I had once prayed to hear, "I'll change. We can fix this. I'll do anything." But by then, I had already changed. And the truth is, once you see betrayal in someone's eyes, you can't unsee it. It becomes a scar you read every time you look at them. I handed her the last box and closed the door gently, not in anger, but in finality. That sound, the click of the lock, wasn't the end of my life. It was the beginning of a new one. In the weeks that followed, the house grew quieter, but I started to see it differently. The bed was no longer a crime scene. It was just furniture. The kitchen wasn't a stage for lies. It was where I learned to cook meals for myself, meals that tasted like freedom. Even the backyard, once a place of whispers and stolen glances, became my sanctuary again. I planted tomatoes. I fixed the fence. I reclaimed the space, one nail, one seed, one breath at a time. And strangely, I began to feel lighter. The anger that once weighed me down began to dissolve. In its place came something unfamiliar but welcome: peace. I had lost a wife, but I had found my self-respect. I had lost a neighbor, but I had gained clarity. Sometimes what you think is the end is just the world forcing you into the future you should have walked towards sooner. Do I forgive her? That's the question everyone asks. Maybe forgiveness isn't about giving her peace. It's about giving myself permission to stop bleeding. I don't hate her anymore. I don't think about Ethan much at all. They became chapters in a book I've already closed. And I refuse to let the worst day of my life define the rest of it. Now, when I walk through my house, I don't feel like a stranger. I feel like the man who built it nail by nail, who faced humiliation and chose dignity, who stared at betrayal and decided to rise instead of fall. And if you've watched this far, maybe you've been there too, or maybe you're living it right now. So I'll leave you with this. Sometimes the people closest to you can cut the deepest. But sometimes losing them is the only way to stop the bleeding. So let me ask you, If you walked into your home and found the person you trusted most with your neighbor in your bed, what would you do? Would you walk away quietly? Or would you, like me, make sure the truth was heard by everyone? Whatever your answer, leave it in the comments. And if this story hit you, share it because someone out there might need the reminder that even after betrayal, you can stand tall again, because I did. And so can you.